Welcome to another episode of Hardcat Basics. In this episode, we're going to show you the two different ways to create ad hoc work orders in Hardcat. The first method to create an ad hoc work order is by pressing the New button on the Work Order tab of an asset. Let's complete this method. First of all, we need to click on the Asset list. This will bring up a list of all the assets in Hardcat. We now need to identify the asset we want to create the ad hoc work order against. To do this, we can complete a simple search. Alternatively, if you can find in the list, you can just simply double-click the asset or click the Edit button. Now with the asset open, we simply have to click on the Work Orders tab. Within this tab, there is a button on the bottom left-hand side called New. By pressing this New button, it will raise a new ad hoc work order for the asset. By default with a new work order, the asset, location, and engineer have been pre-populated. If you are not the engineer for the work order, feel free to change the engineer to whoever the required person is. If you are calling up regarding this work order, please click the Call button and select your name from the list. From here, we can now enter a description about what's gone wrong with this asset. Once you've added your description and service date, you can simply press OK to save the new ad hoc work order. If you require to enter more information in, such as estimated effort, service notes, or other information, please press the More Details and that will then take you to the next screen. The second method to create an ad hoc work order is via the Work Order module. To access the Work Order module or Work Order list, it's as simple as clicking the icon in the menu. From this screen here, to create a new ad hoc work order, it's as simple as clicking the New button. When creating a work order via the New button here, the work order doesn't necessarily have to be assigned to an asset. In the event where a work order is not associated to an asset, this is the way that you create the work order. This way you don't have to associate the work order to an asset. You can simply populate the description field, assign a location, and press OK to save the work order. Now, let's go through the process of populating all the information that may be required to create a new work order. First of all, you can associate an ad hoc work order to a predefined task. By doing this, the work order will be populated with information based on the task. It will pre-populate service notes, safety notes, qualifications, preset information, and other information from the task. We can specify the service date. We can specify more text. So if we need to write a bit more of a narrative about what needs to occur, we can write it in here for the engineer to look at. Here we can enter a brief description about what went wrong or why this work order is being generated. We can specify a priority on the work order. The priority drop-down is customizable for your organization. Out of the box, Hardcat comes with priority 0 through 9. They can be edited to any priority levels of your organization's choosing: high, medium, low, urgent, or other options that you may require. We can specify a caller. Who is it that should be informed when the work order is completed? In this instance, Brian Waters is calling up about this work order. Are we associating it to a project? A project is a way of grouping like-style work orders or tasks together for easier reporting. Is this work order associated to an asset? If it is, we can click the Asset button and select it from the list. In this instance, it can be a Toyota Land Cruiser. By selecting the asset, it will pre-populate the location based on the asset's location. If the work order's final location needs to be a different site, you click on the Location button and change its location. Should this work order be associated to the Hardcat administrator? If not, you can click on the Engineer button and select someone else from the list. So, Gary Young shall be completing this work order. From here, that's enough information to create our new work order, but let's look at a bit more detail by clicking on the More Details button. From here, we can now look at the full work order screen. Here we can see all the information that we previously put in has come through. Service date. If necessary now, we can also specify a time that we'd like this work order to be completed at. So we'd like it completed on the 5th of the 2nd, 2015 at 10 o'clock in the morning. Further on, we can specify what status we'd like to be. We can specify the priority again. We also specify a category. The category in this instance hasn't been populated, but it could be breakdown, cyclical maintenance, and other type of categories. If necessary, you can put in the GPS coordinates where the work order is going to be performed. If you're using the Hardcat web interface with the Google Maps integration, you'll see the work order appear on the map. Within the Assets tab of the work order, we can change the assets condition to be one of the other conditions within our drop-down value. We can associate presets to a work order, which will allow us to ask up to an extra 999 questions on this work order. For example, we may have vehicle servicing questions, which are, have you completed these steps to complete the work order? And the answers can be saved. The Resources tab is an area where we can specify how long do we think this work order should take to complete. If we were associating to a task, this information would have been pre-populated. The other information on the Resources tab is the actual time and cost to complete this work order. The actual time and cost is based around the actions completed within this work order. The Notes section allows us to put in a service note. The service note is a predefined piece of information set up in the system which contains the information about how to complete that particular service. So when you're printing out the work order, this information will be printed on the work order for the engineer to see. The next tab is Files. The Files tab allows us to import files to the work order. Again, if it was based on a task and the task had a file associated to it, that file could have been copied across to our work order. Files on a work order could, for example, be a photo of the asset, could be the safe work method statements, it could be compliance certificates. Once the work order is completed and have an engineer's report, the report can be associated to the work order via the Files tab. Work Order Actions tab allows us to capture the work completed, complete the work order. To complete a new action, it's as simple as pressing the New button. From this screen here, we can specify the date and time on when the action occurred. We can specify how long this action took to complete. If there was a labour cost and part costs. We can further drill down our part cost by actually selecting the individual parts used, either based around our Hardcat stock module items or via the product catalogue. The standard action functionality allows us to pre-populate our description with a predefined standard action. In this instance, there haven't been any generated, but if there were, there could have been work completed, waiting on parts, travel time. From a reporting standpoint in the future, these could be selected and searched upon. The Details of Work Done area is an area where we can go through and say, well, this is the work that I completed to complete this task, and any notes that may be required and taken. The Budget button allows you to associate the costs associated to this work order back to a previously predefined budget. In this instance, it could have been a services budget and against vehicles. In this instance, we now are going to associate all costs against the budget item of services or vehicles within the services cost center. The final two tabs are Stock on Hand and History. The Stock on Hand tab will show us any stock that's been associated to this asset based on the task generation. When creating an ad hoc work order, you may not see any stock here unless you have the stock module and has been manually transferred into this work order. And finally, you have the History tab, where we can see all the different items and actions that have been occurred on this work order since it's been generated. Once you have added all the information in that you need to against the work order, you can press OK to save to that point in time. Once you're ready to close your work order, it's as simply as changing the status from raised or in progress to closed. Once that's been completed, you will close the work order off and update the assets information with the costing for labour and parts. Thank you for watching this episode of Hardcat Basics. If you have any other questions about anything you've seen in this episode, please don't hesitate to contact Hardcat Support.